What's up, everybody? Coach CeeLo here, and welcome to the 38th episode of the No Bullshit Six-Figure Sales Podcast. Today, we have a good friend of mine. We're just hanging out in some dirty boxing.
Dirty boxing.
Yeah, that was an amazing event that we were there with our very good friend Ross Mandel and Nelson as well, you know, from the Honor Among Thieves podcast. And so I've got somebody that's really excited. We got a great story, and we're going to be talking about some great things. This gentleman, man, he's done it all. He's been a professional rugby player. He's a chiropractor. He runs a very large network. He's a COO, right? COO of a very large network of physical therapy companies. Am I right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And so without any further ado, let me introduce my buddy, Greg Haskin. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, welcome to the podcast. You know, I guess let's just jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about your story. How did you get to, from, the story of Greg Haskin, where you were to where you are right now as the CEO of this very large company?
Well, it's complicated, but one, my father was entrepreneurial, very smart business guy, was a home developer, had hospitals and labs in Puerto Rico. He started a factoring business that ended up going public. So I always saw him as an entrepreneurial person. And so when I went off to college, I went and got a business degree. That just to me made sense. I want to be in business.
Sure.
Right? When I graduated from Hofstra University in Long Island, I had an opportunity to get a job with a startup company in Manhattan.
Well-known university.
Hofstra is a well-known university, really good academic school. Was there playing football as well. So it was a good culture change for me growing up in South Florida, get up to Long Island, New York. Really enjoyed my time there. Got this job for a company called Metrolink, and Metrolink was an interesting concept. It connected large mailroom offices with large companies for courier services.
Okay.
And so the typical way that product was done in the past is you get on the phone, you get the operator takes down all your information, then they pick up their phone and they call their room where they have the couriers, and they take the information, and then that person gets to the courier and they pass on that information. And, during that process, one, it's timely. Two, you end up with some misinformation. It's like that game where you whisper in someone's ear and they whisper to the next person.
I remember that in school.
And then by the time it gets that, it's a whole nother story, right? So what they did is they took computers, hard linked, right, and put them in the offices of these companies that utilize courier services a lot with these large courier companies. So you could just get on the computer, put in your order, and it goes directly to the courier through a hard line, right? And it eliminated a lot of the misinformation, the timely part of it, and it was a new concept. What happened is right around that time is when the internet came out, and so you didn't need the hard computers put in, and it kind of eliminated that business model.
Oh, wow.
At that time, though, actually, so I was in New York City. I was playing competitive rugby. I was working for a startup. So I was training hard. I was working hard. I was going to training at night. And I was, 23 years old, living in Manhattan. I was going out every night.
Hell yeah.
After like 8 months, I found myself laying in bed like a zombie. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. just the pace of New York City and just everything. Had a great time, amazing time. I had an opportunity to go to England to play rugby, get a contract with a club that would put me up and help me with housing and give me a little work to play some high-level rugby. And right before, so I gave up my job, gave up my apartment a few weeks before I was supposed to go. I get a call from them saying that they have to cancel the contract.
Oh, no.
That they changed the laws regarding foreigner eligibility in England, and that they were only allowed 2 foreign players, and they already had a couple international players, and they couldn't uphold the contract. So now I gave up my job, gave up my apartment. What am I going to do? So my folks still had a place down in South Florida, and so I moved into their place. They actually moved out to Colorado, and they'd come back to South Florida maybe 4 months out of the year. And I just started reevaluating, and I said, you know what? I didn't really like the sales. I didn't like the cold calls. I want to do something that would keep me more engaged with really where my passion was, which was maybe strength and conditioning coach or something along those lines. So I decided to go back to school for exercise physiology. And I went to FIU, and during that time, I started doing some personal training. I was managing a club down in Coconut Grove, and I started playing rugby for the local Fort Lauderdale rugby team. And on that team was a chiropractor. And Dr. Ken, I started getting some chiropractic care, and it made a big difference. I really hadn't gotten chiropractic care before. And I loved a more holistic, natural approach. It kind of was hand in hand with the approach that I was learning and wanted to get into, with strength and conditioning. And so, you know, as I was pursuing that, about a year later, I get a call. I get a call from an old rugby teammate of mine, and he says, I'm at this chiropractic school, Life College, and the coach there, Terrence Titus, wanted me to give you a call and to see if you're interested in checking out the school. I said, that's
what a
really
coincidence. So
interesting.
the two things that you that you're into and that you like both kind of
collided.
Yeah.
Kind of came together. So I went up there, and there was a lot of passionate people in this school. They have an amazing rugby program, one of the best in the country, and they offered me a full scholarship to go to chiropractic school. I said, this is for me. Dropped everything and ended up going up to chiropractic school. Was up there for 4 years, and a great experience. This was in Marietta, Georgia. During the time that I was there, 92 to 96 was the build-up for the Olympics in Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
So I saw the growth and the development in that area was pretty cool. And the culture at Life College, pretty amazing, you know. There's a strong rugby culture, strong chiropractic culture that bonded everybody together, and that's pretty much what your life was. 24/7 was rugby, chiropractic, in school, and just everybody in that environment. So.
And did you find that most of the students there were like yourself, meaning that they were passionate about both things, or were they there because of one or the other?
Yeah, so the rugby program obviously, you know, had probably 40 players on it. So school was a small school. I would say at that time there was maybe 1,000, 1,200, you know, students in the chiropractic program. Everybody there was very passionate for chiropractic. And, you know, Life is the second chiropractic school in the U.S., Palmer being the first, and D.D. Palmer was the founder of chiropractic. But Life had a very strong, what we would call, following because of its more holistic approach. Some of the chiropractic schools incorporated modalities. They were what we call a straight school, where just the power of the adjustment is the most important thing that you could offer. When you give an adjustment, you remove nerve interference. We're not going to cure any diseases, but you're going to let the body function to its fullest potential. So the people that are there are very passionate about chiropractic. The rugby program had a strong support from the school because we were always very successful, competing for national championships and so forth. So everybody revolved around us, but there was a lot of passion for chiropractic, yes.
Okay. Is that where the term functional health comes from?
No, functional medicine, functional health, you know, that's another term. But, you know, chiropractic. So the story of D.D. Palmer is that he had a janitor, and the janitor lost his hearing. And when he was conversing with him, he said he lifted something and he heard a pop in his neck, and ever since that time he lost his hearing. So D.D. Palmer was a magnetic healer, and he correlated nerves and energies, and he palpated his neck and felt this bone out of place. And he correlated that if I use a lever to put this bone in place, maybe it will reconnect the dysfunction from the nerve. And so he gave this guy, Harvey Lillard, an adjustment, and it restored his hearing. So he put out an advertisement. This was in Davenport, Iowa, right? That he could cure hearing. And this was in the late 1800s. And through word of mouth, as all these people heard about this guy that cured his hearing, so all these people that were deaf came to show up at his place.
Oh my God.
And he started adjusting people. And he studied the spine and the articulations to make sure you had the right leverage and ranges to adjust correctly. And what he found is he started adjusting people, but a lot of these people that were deaf didn't get restored hearing. But other positive things were happening. So what he did, he put a correlation to each segment had a nerve that was affected, and when you take the pressure off that nerve, it's going to restore that nerve. So that's kind of the start of chiropractic and how it's a holistic approach to not healing or curing, but just removing nerve interference to let the human body function to its fullest potential.
Let it do what it does.
Let it do what it does, yeah.
Is there any correlation between that and Eastern medicine and the acupuncture or the meridian points or anything like that at all?
Of course there is. There's a huge correlation. Again, the human body is incredible. It's a self-healing organism. It uses positive and negative feedback systems to balance itself. So acupuncture, acupressure, Chinese medicine. It's been around. And for me, I've always taken a more holistic and natural approach because I just feel that's where the body knows how to respond, right? And and so for me, I've always tried to live wholesome, eat well, exercise, take care of myself, and not utilize medicine or surgeries if I didn't have to. And there's a time and place for it. So I'm not ignorant to say that, that we should avoid surgeries or medicine.
Yeah.
But if we could do it on a more holistic, natural approach is the way to go.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So take me through. So you went to school there.
Yes.
Then what happened?
So I graduated 1996, and you have to do an internship. And so I did an internship in Melbourne, Florida. And at my wedding, which was 6 months before I graduated, there was someone that we met that had a family member that had a practice up in Melbourne. And he was looking to retire shortly, and I could do my internship there, and maybe, it would be an opportunity for me to take on his practice. And okay, so, I took that opportunity and went up there. This gentleman was 72 years old. He'd practiced a long time. He was an old timer, had a nice practice, owned his own building. And I built it up pretty substantially because my energy coming into the practice.
He was a chiropractor as well.
He was a chiropractor, okay. Yeah. And just started building up his practice. And when I completed my internship, which was probably, I think, 8 months, I thought that, he'd give me this opportunity to take over his practice. And all of a sudden, what was going to be something that was kind of going to be given to me became this high price on a practice.
It was a pitch. It was pitch on selling you his business.
I don't know if it was a pitch or what, but at that time, my family was down here, and so I said, well, if I'm going to open a practice or pay any amount of money for a practice, I'd rather it be down here. So I moved back down here, and I looked at a few different options. I had kind of a mentor as well, Dr. Ken Osborne, and I started working out of his office, and he started helping me look for locations to open an office. I was living in Pembroke Pines, and I found a nice location on the border of Hollywood and Pembroke Pines, Pines and University, and opened my office there in 1997. And yeah, started from scratch, just me. I answered the calls, I scheduled the patients, I treated the patients, did my billing, slowly started billing, building up a little following, hired somebody, and slowly grew my practice, and over time had a very substantial practice, very what I consider successful. I got to help and treat and take care of a lot of people. I had great staff. I'd focused on, putting people around me that were quality people.
Right.
I had an office manager. Her name was Rita. She was maybe the most incredible people person I ever met in my life. I mean, people would come in pain, aggravated. By the time they left, she's giving them a hug and sending them on their way with a smile. And just her energy was infectious. And how she answered the phone. My office was Advanced Health Services, and she'd Advanced Health Services, Rita, and sometimes we're busy or she's helping. And if I answer the phone and, someone would be, Dr. Haskin? Yeah. Where's Rita? They want to talk to Rita, But I will tell you that she handled situations just with her being so authentic and such a true person that it made, she was a big part of my practice. So,
wow.
Yeah.
All right. So you opened a practice from nothing. You
From
built it
scratch.
up to
Yeah.
a very successful practice.
Correct.
And what did you do after that?
Yeah, so I had my practice many years. I was in a location when I first opened my office. Someone that I'd known for many years, they owned a building. So I signed a 10-year contract with a 5-year option, and things were good. When the market, they actually sold that office maybe at my 10th, 12th year, and it was no big deal, Then what happened is they had the hub that was in that center. It was like a furniture place left, and they brought in a career college. And when the career college came in, the new owners just focused on the career college, and it took a lot of the parking, and they stopped caring about some of the other tenants. And then the market crashed in 2007. And so what happened is that now a lot of the homeless were hanging out. Things that needed to be taken care of weren't being taken care of. I had some issues with a few things. They didn't want to resolve it. So my lease had stopped. It was 10 years at that time. And I went on a month-to-month, And at that time I said, you know what, let me look around. At that time there was 8 chiropractors on this corner of Pines and University.
Oh my God.
There was 2 shopping centers on every corner, and there was a chiropractor in every corner. And so I said, you know what, maybe I'll find someone I can move my practice into, and then, I'll open another office. And went around, and nobody wanted to do anything. So I was still month to month. What am I going to do? And I went across the street, and there was an Office Depot across the street that I frequented. And there used to be a Circuit City, and nothing had been there for a while. And when I drove by, the doors were open, and they were doing a build out in there. And so it was like an epiphany. I saw these lights coming out, and I stopped, and it was like, come see me. So I parked my car right in the front, and I go and I look in, and it was beautiful. They had granite countertops, marble floors, high ceilings, really nice build out. I'm like, this place is beautiful. I'm like, this would be a great place for me. And when I left, I looked up, and it said Cano, Medical, Dental, and Vision. And
Sounds familiar, that name.
Cano Health. Cano Health opened up. So their very first office was this office.
Okay.
And so I knew the name Cano. Cano was a dental office in that same shopping center. And they used to advertise on park benches, right? And or the bus benches. And so I knew the name. And so when I saw Cano, I went over to that small dental office. And I go in there, and there's a young guy in there. And he says, oh, yeah, Dr. Cano, that's my mom. I'm Marlo, and I'm just graduating from medical school, and my brother's just graduating from dental school. And we have an uncle that's like an optometrist, and we have this multidisciplinary office, and we're going to be the largest primary care providers in the state of Florida. And he went on, and I said, it's beautiful. I said, I'm looking maybe to move my office into a location. I don't know if you're interested, but I would love to move my office in there. And he goes, let me talk it over with my family. And he got back to me in a couple of days. He said, yeah, love to have you. So I moved my office in there, and it was an amazing relationship. Beautiful office, had lots of parking, and they referred me a lot of their patients that had musculoskeletal issues.
Perfect.
Right? And I had a lot of patients that needed primary care, so I referred them a lot of patients for primary care. And it worked out great, you know, and it was a really nice office. Things were really well for many years. They started growing exponentially, and they started opening more and more spaces in Dade County predominantly. And they had maybe 7, 8 locations, and then they went up to Orlando and opened up a couple of locations, and then Tampa, and started opening more and more. And again, this was a family practice. The mom, Dr. Cano, was this is a pretty amazing story. Dr. Cano was a Cuban immigrant. When she immigrated to the U.S., she didn't speak English, and her degree didn't carry its weight, so she had to go back to dental school. She opened up this small office and built up a nice little office, right? And then they opened up this large multidisciplinary office with her family. The story gets even cooler. So now, as time went on, they continued to grow and expand. And again, I had a really good relationship with the family. And there was always like, Greg, come join us. We'd love to start adding chiropractic in our other offices, and maybe. And I just, I was pretty content having my own practice. And again, I was, you know, I enjoyed taking care of people, but I also liked answering to myself, you know. As the next couple of years went on, they grew even more substantially and started going into some other states, and we're talking about going public.
Oh,
and
wow.
They had some big investors. And at this time, you know, this was probably 2016, 17. So I'm practicing more than 20 years. You know, I realized that I'm working harder, and I always did very well. But I'm working harder, making less. I never thought after 20 years you'd be working harder.
Supposed to be the other way around. Yeah.
Correct. You know, what's happening in all of healthcare is, you know, these insurance companies are so powerful, they want to reimburse less. Meanwhile, inflation and overhead continues to go up. So getting paid less, overhead going up, it's not a great business model. And that's why pretty much there's no more or very few practitioners of any kind that are solo practitioners. You just can't afford it. You can't afford it. A lot of the MDs have gone into practices in the hospitals, or now they're
medical
in big
centers
groups to cover their costs, you know. So I said, you know what? The other thing is that I had an extensive, you know, rugby career. My body's broken. The way that I practiced was very physical. I would see a lot of athletes. I'd adjust a lot of big athletes. I'd adjust an athlete, and my shoulder would pop out. So I'd adjust them, and then I'd pop my shoulder back in, you know, and do a lot of soft tissue work and myofascial work. So it was very physical. And it's tough to sell a practice like that because it's very personality driven.
Right,
you know?
right. It's you.
So
it's not a system that passes on.
Correct. And so I explored maybe selling my practice, but they made me an incredible opportunity to join them, one that I couldn't refuse. And it was a combination of the timing. It gave me an exit strategy, right? If not, it's keep practicing until you fall apart. So this gave me an exit strategy, and I became a director of their physiotherapy department. They mostly saw Medicare Advantage patients, although they saw patients of all ages, but that was the majority. That's what they focused on. And they had a non-invasive treatment program for pain that I believed in because it was not invasive. They did natural injections. They did PRP and ozone. They did decompression. They did laser. They did therapists that did myofascial release. So I became the director of that department, and I was overseeing like 86 offices in 5 states.
My God.
Yeah. So it was a great learning experience. Got to utilize my leadership skills, learned a lot more about, you know, deeper business sides, and I really enjoyed it, you know. So it was a really good experience. What happened is they grew so substantially. They fought through the COVID times, and they continued to open and open and open. And I guess there was a hostile takeover. there's a bad situation, maybe they overspent some money, whatever transpired.
Well, the bigger, badder ones usually will swallow up the ones like that, right?
So I think what was happening is I think there was talk of larger groups coming to take them over. And again, I don't know a lot of the inside information. All I know is that I got a call that I'm being laid off, and I was the highest paid in my department, and we're cutting you, and that was a shock for me.
Right, because you started with them from
I started
first
correct
from the very first one that they built out to this huge business.
They had 170 offices at one point. Primary care offices. And again, the family was still involved. The son was the CEO. But 6 months before that, or sometime before that, he got ousted out of there. The board kind of ousted him out. And so I kind of the
writing was on the wall.
I saw it, but still, I never expected just to get a call. Hey, you're done as of tomorrow.
Right.
And we're going to give you some severance, and that's it. So that put me through a huge, what am I going to do? What's next? One thing I always wanted to do is motivational and public speaking. So that's something that came across, my mind. And at that time, TED and TEDx was kind of a big thing. And so I joined a group that would teach me how to apply for TEDx events and teach me the structure and so forth. And in my mind, and I look back, I don't know if it was good or not good, but, if I wanted to get into the public speaking platform, if I had a TEDx, that would propel me. And they told me it's very difficult to get a TEDx, to get on a talk. I probably put in 70 applications and never got accepted for any. Took a lot of time, took a lot of effort. At this point now, my 3-month severance is almost coming to an end. I don't have any income. What am I going to do? Started reevaluating. Do I want to go back into practice? I had some friends that had some business ventures that we talked about, me maybe partnering with. I started looking into a couple with them. Spent a month with one company that didn't really pan out. Spent a month with another company that didn't pan out. Evaluated a few offices to maybe go back into practice. That didn't, Now 3 months of no income, burning through a lot of cash and savings. I never had a resume.
Wow. Because everything was built on relationships from before.
Well, I had my own practice. Then I got absorbed into, Cano. And never needed a resume. Yeah, I had one when I graduated college, in 1989 when I got that business job, but my career totally turned and hadn't had one. So I said, I got to put together a resume. So put together a resume, started reaching out to some people, still wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I had developed a lot of leadership skills and management skills, and through a friend over time, he connected me with a friend that he knew. And they were looking for a COO for a physical therapy group. They had their own corporate centers. So they had 5 corporate centers that they run, and they also sell franchises. So I oversaw their corporate centers as well as the franchises, and I dealt with the billing department, the HR department.
Yeah, COO does everything.
Yeah.
They literally run the whole business, right?
They do.
The CEO has like the big vision and the contacts and the networking, but the CEO's the one that's got to roll up his sleeves. COO's got to roll up the sleeves and get to work.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. That's a great explanation of from where you were to where you gotten, right?
Yeah.
I just want you guys to know Greg is a very, very humble person. I've gotten to know a little bit about you also through Nelson and through Ross. And Greg is someone who's been extremely successful. You've mentored a lot of people. You're into mentoring and coaching and stuff like that. And so I think I want to go 2 different avenues with you, right? I'll tell you what they are and then just go riff with whichever one you want to riff with. One is just the grit that you've got and that you've had, not only in business, but in rugby and everything else, and how that's kind of fostered that success that you've had. And then maybe later we can talk about how health plays an important part for people that are high-level achievers.
Yeah.
Because the people that listen to my podcast are either very high-level achievers, high-level achievers, or on the road to becoming a high-level achiever. And
Love it.
Those, I'd love for you to riff on any one of those two things.
Yeah. I look at myself as an overachiever. You know, I've had to overachieve. So, you know, I played high level through high school. I played football through high school, through college. Then I got into rugby. And
by the way, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second.
Yes.
For those of you that aren't seeing this with video, you're what, in your early 50s?
I'm 59.
59.
Yeah.
Damn, you don't look it.
Thank
Dude
you.
is built like a tank, right? So he's in incredibly good shape. You can tell that he takes care of himself and his body. And so that's why I asked that question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've told this story and a lot of people don't know it, but, and Ross kind of encouraged me to put it up there. You know, when I was in middle school and we would play pickup sports, I was the last guy picked. I was always the last guy picked. And that lit a fire for me. And that pushed me to want to aspire to be better. And I looked at every avenue I could to get better.
So from being the last guy picked in team sports in school to being a professional rugby player.
Yeah. And again, the last guy picked in my neighborhood, you know, when we
Right.
had picked up games or this and that. I played a lot of sports and I was average. But being the last guy picked, it kind of lit a fire for me to aspire to be better. And I started looking at myself to find ways to do better. And I started doing weight training. I started shooting baskets on my own. I asked my dad to put up a hoop. I would go out. I'd run patterns at night. I would do push-ups. I would do sit-ups. I would do everything possible to try and improve and get better and dedicate myself to that. And I did. And so I think maybe I developed a little bit later in life athletically than some other people. I think also my mindset to pursue, to be better and get better, you know, brought me substantially into that realm. You know, when I graduated high school, I was all county. I got a football scholarship. I started in college. I won the mayor's trophy, and
Wow.
But that I think was just from my grit, my edge to want to get better, to pursue it, that I wasn't going to let anything stop me, you know. And that's kind of my mindset for everything, you know. And I still feel to this day I've got to work harder. I got to do more. And that's my mentality. And I've tried to carry that into relationships, into business, not just sports, you know. My physical mindset is my strength, you know, my superpower, you know. I'm learning to get better at my other parts of my mental capacity in that same realm. And it's always a work in progress, you know. So getting back to, you know, when I open my practice, this is my practice. I've got a family to support. I had a young child. I was still playing competitive rugby. I want to travel. So, you know, what do I got to do? You know, I went and I joined BNI, which is Business Networking International. That was a
Great.
great avenue for me.
Yeah.
I got to meet some quality people.
Great networking too,
Great,
man.
great
I use
networking.
that a lot in any time of the business, any of the business
Yeah.
that I had where I had to network. That was amazing.
It's a one of a kind company, and people are loyal to you. And you know, and if you do good, they're going to do good for you, right? So it's a great foundation. I did as much networking as I could. I would go out and meet anybody and everybody, and I also offered my services. And one of my best patients, this is an interesting story, and this just popped in my mind. I volunteered. I had a patient that ran one of the Optimist groups, Miramar Optimists, very close to my practice, and they did physicals. So I said, you know what? I'll come do the physicals. Typically, you have to go to the doctor, your primary, and get a physical, and they charge you. And I said, I'll come, and I'm not going to charge anything. So I'd go to there, and I'd do it in 3 nights. You know, I'd see all the kids, and it wasn't the most ideal conditions, and you know, so I would take their blood pressure, I would listen to their heart, I would take you know, their resting heartbeat, I would take a questionnaire, some basic stuff. And if I didn't feel comfortable passing them from the physical exam that I did, I'd send them back to their primary. But most of the kids I did. I had one kid that was really heavy and a super sweet kid, but his blood pressure was really high. He was 10 years old.
Oh,
He
my
was
God. High
very
blood pressure at
overweight.
such a young age.
Yes. He had a high heart rate, and so I failed him. And I tell all the kids that I fail, you know, I'd be glad to, you know, let your mom know or dad, and I'd be glad to talk to him. So she comes in, and I said, listen, I said, I think your son is capable of playing football. But in this environment and these circumstances with high blood pressure, he's 10 years old, high heart rate, he's obese, you know, let's just go. I'm sure he'll get cleared, but I'd feel better, right? Okay, so I finished that day. The next day, I get a call, and Rita, my office manager, says, oh, there's this lady that you saw her son at the Optimist. She has a workman's comp case. She was so impressed that you took the time to talk to her about her son, and that she wanted you to treat her for her work comp injuries.
Wow.
And that lady went on to probably refer over 100 people to me in the next 10, 15 years. And it was just doing something good, you know, and I'm always a firm believer what goes around comes around, and do good, it comes back to you, you know. And so even in my chiropractic practice, I had people that couldn't afford care, never turned anybody away. I gave away a lot of care because it was in the goodness of my heart, and it's always come back. And the intention was, if someone needs care, I'm going to provide them care. So
that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. So that, you know, again, just goes far-reaching how, and I'm still friends with that lady, and I've taken care of all of her kids, and her kids have had kids, and I've seen them, you know, and it's just so impactful how you just go and just straightforward and be honest with someone, and, you know, this is what I think, and how much they appreciated it, and it comes back. So getting back to, you know, me being gritty and my passion for taking care of people, but also that same grit to go out and network and market and nurture relationships, and treat my patients like they wanted to be treated. And if there's anything I could really give information, is customer service is kind of a lost thing. That have a passion to really have a purpose, whatever you're selling, you know, that you believe in it, and you want it to help people, and you'll make a difference doing it, you know.
Wow.
So,
yeah, actually give a shit. Like, care about the person that you're helping. I've found that the most successful salespeople that I've ever met viewed themselves as someone who was helping that person out.
100%.
And when you do that, 100%. So now let's flip this, right?
Yeah. Yep.
We've got people that are watching this that are in extremely high stress situations, you know. Some of them selling packages that are 20,000, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70,000 a pop, 5,000 a pop, whatever. They're in very high stress situations.
Yeah.
And as salespeople, and I'm the number one, guilty party of that.
Yep.
I'll focus on my career. I'll focus on my business. I'll focus on everything but my health, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about what things could they do, maybe on a day-to-day basis or on a weekly basis or even monthly basis, that would be not only behoove them, but really help relieve some of the stress, some of the tension, some of the things that could cause other health issues. But not only that, that would help them become better at what they do as salespeople.
Sure. Yeah, that's very valid.
And entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah. No, and that's so significant because, it all ties together. We want to be our best, right?
Yeah.
We want to be our best. So me being in health and wellness, I also coach rugby. So I look to get the most out of people. I want them to be their best, as well as you want to be healthy. So when it comes to sales and you're in a higher environment of stress and if you're not taking care of yourself, you're never going to be able to perform your best, right? People don't see that or understand it. But I think there's a couple things that we could do, and it's simple. If we just learn to make ourselves our priority and control the things that we could control. So what can we control? We could control how we eat, right? We could control if we exercise. We could control making sure that we stay hydrated, water, important, with salt, important, right? Getting enough sleep and a positive mindset. Those are things we could control. If you do those things, you're going to be in a better place. You could get extreme with all of them, but you just have to be simple with it, right? And so you have to ground yourself. I think routine is really important. Something that's helped me when I was going through my divorce and going through challenges is meditation is something that I've added into my routine, breath work, again, nutrition, exercise. If I don't have those, I can't function. For me to get the most out of myself, I have to have those components in place. And then I find that I perform much better with my work. If my physical's not taken care of, my mental's not there either. So it goes hand in hand.
And it sounds like it's all worked into your routine so that it's something you do every day no matter what, right?
It is, And is it easy? No. There's some days I struggle. And there's some days I go to the gym and I just go through the motions. But I still know that going through the motions is better than not being there. And that's just from my experience and overcoming injuries and playing through injuries and playing and working through issues at work and having challenges at work. If I wasn't there physically, there's no way that my mental capacity would get me through those parts.
Wow.
So I've just kind of built on that. And it's become my lifestyle, my way of life, I wake up. I sometimes will exercise, bike ride, meditate before I even start my day. Reading the Bible, affirmations. It could come in a lot of different ways. But you got to get your mind right, and you got to put your body in that position to be able to deal with the stress, right? So if you're dealing with stress from work, if you're physically not there, it's going to wear on you. Right? You're not going to be able to make the decisions. You're not going to be able to counter an objection like you'd like to. You might not have the energy to push where you need to. So that's why I think those components go hand in hand.
That's amazing. Yeah, for sure. All right. So last question.
Yes.
You run into your 20-year-old self.
Yes.
All right. And let's say that your 20-year-old self is in sales.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Maybe even really good. Just not great yet, but good.
Yeah.
Right? What little tidbits of advice now after this whole life of grit, of resilience, of everything that you've had, of mentorship, both being mentored and mentoring people, right?
Yeah.
What would you tell your 20-year-old self in terms of some advice of becoming successful?
Yeah, I would say that, surround yourself with good people, is probably one of the most important things that you could do. I was very fortunate as an athlete to have some amazing coaches and amazing teammates. And I look back and that support is really probably the most important thing that you could have. So when it comes to, business, surrounding yourself with good people, finding mentors, finding someone that you could throw ideas off of, have your friends that are successful, start a mastermind. And I didn't start some of these things till later on in life because I jumped in full speed into my chiropractic career, and was always a grinder. And when I started my chiropractic career, I was still playing competitive rugby. I was training at 6 a.m. before my kids were up. At my lunch break, I would do my sprint training. I had rugby practice at night, and so I just dove all in. And I realized that if I could have aligned myself with more mentors at that time from the business side, I had some. Dr. Osborne was a mentor, but I could have probably utilized him more. So finding people to surround yourself with, getting in those right groups that you feel comfortable with, people that aspire, have the same goals that you do, I think that's really important.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, guys. Greg,
yes.
It has been an absolute pleasure to have you here in the podcast.
Yeah, man.
Just as we had a great time at the Dirty Boxing, and I'm sure there'll be some more as well.
I'm sure there will.
Guys, my name is Coach CeeLo, and I have helped thousands of salespeople reach, attain, maintain, and continue to get consistency in 6 figures. You keep listening to me, you'll be the next.